So everybody, Briahna Joy Gray recently got into a debate with Joe Cirincione, who first red flag. What kind of Italian uses soft C's in his name? Cirincione. It's Cirincione. Joe Cirincione, Giuseppe Cirincione. That's how you say that name. It's a great name, but you ruin it by saying Cirincione.
That's it. That's like this guy goes to the supermarket and he orders capicola.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't know the gabagool.
Capicola and mozzarella.
Mozzarella. Can I have the mozzarella?
Yeah, right.
Not the mozz. The mozzarella.
So they got into a debate over Russia and Ukraine, a region of the world with far worse food than his homeland. So let's take a look. We sped this up about 25%, just so we're not sitting here all day, but here it is.
Should we be supporting Ukraine at all? In addition to the security, the global security reason of not wanting people to use force to change borders, there's a basic human rights reason. We do not abandon people who have been invaded by a fascist dictator, and that's what Putin is. We help them. We resist this. And here's finally the moral reason. Watch the new Frontline show that takes us behind Ukrainian occupied cities that have been recently liberated. And look at what the Russians are doing in Ukraine. People often talk about occupied territory, but this is occupied people. They have tortured and slaughtered and raped and deported hundreds of thousands. 1.5 million have been forcibly deported. They're stealing Ukrainian children. 500 just yesterday were shipped to Russia. And this is why we should be supporting them. We cannot allow this kind of evil to go unchecked, just on a basic moral reason. I mean, don't you agree with that?
I'm sorry, I don't. And here's why.
Why?
There are gangs that have overtaken Haiti. There is a cholera pandemic that was started by the UN. UN members raped Haitians. A third of Pakistan was underwater. Should we go, due to the climate crisis, should we go and invade China because Uyghurs are in concentration camps? Tell me, articulate. This is the question that I asked Matt Duss when this war first started. Until you can articulate to me what the rationale is behind where America intervenes and where it doesn't, and give me some kind of moral accounting that makes me believe that it's actually about moral commitments and in realizing how much of our money and our resources in the richest country in the world can go to saving lives and increasing the quality of life for the most people, as opposed to a strategic military intervention for territory, resources, and political control. If you can articulate to me why this is truly the most deserving humanitarian case on the planet, as opposed to a continuation under these Cold War policies, we want our economic system, our oppressive, by the way, economic system to maintain global dominance, then I can start to entertain a conversation about what our intervention should be, how long, and how much. But there is nowhere in the entire public sphere that conversation is actually happening, and nowhere close to a rationalization that's been presented.
Got it.
Got it. So one of the really interesting things about this debate is how hamstrung Joe Cirincione actually is, because he is not a neocon Republican. He's not John Bolton, right? He's a liberal. If it were John Bolton would just say, well, yeah, I mean, we are enforcing a unipolar, Western-centric New World Order, and that's why we have to do it.
Well, he would argue what we are the indispensable nation.
Right, exactly.
What would the world look like without American leadership? He would just go there.
But I think a neocon Republican would just be much more comfortable with articulating the sort of Western chauvinist sort of attitudes that are inherent to this discussion. Whereas a liberal like Joe can't really go there, as we'll see. He kind of admits that, yeah, that is a hole in my argument as we get into the second half of this.
Well, of course, he cannot. The thing that this entire project cannot admit that Briahna is bringing out here, and brought out even more forcefully in her follow-up segment on The Hill after he complained about having this segment tweeted out. What about the children starving in Yemen? She showed the report. This was on her Hill segment. The UN says 500,000 children are in danger of starving in Yemen this year. How can you possibly say this is not about race? You care so much about this country when there are so many others whose suffering is arguably worse than even the horrific suffering that he's describing here.
Well, they get into that right now.
Let me give you two sources to go to that say this much more articulately than I do. The first is Jamie Raskin's letter, which I would like to print on parchment and hang on my wall, because it is a wonder. I'm sure I don't know if you've read it.
No, I read the excerpts on.
I know
I haven't read it in full.
it talks about what Ukraine represents and the kind of society it's representing that's developing in the war, which is different from what Ukraine was before the war, and the inclusive nature of this, and then the kinds of people that are fighting this war and coming together for this war. And what and Ukraine is
Kinds
really
of people. A certain
a young,
kind.
struggling democracy trying to stand up to an authoritarian, I would say, fascist power. And this is
struggling democracy. That's an
Listen,
interesting
have you
way to
heard of
put it.
phrenology? We have examined the skulls of the people coming together in Ukraine, and the skulls are different.
America's interest to promote these people and this struggle. Timothy Snyder says something more elaborately in his Foreign Affairs article about the need for democracy to prevail over authoritarianism, and a victory for a democratic Ukraine and a defeat for Putin would be a huge victory for freedom, for human rights in the world today. So it's not just about Ukraine, although that's the primary reason we should be aiding them. They're the ones getting killed, raped, deported, and tortured. But it's also would be a tremendous advance for the cause of democracy, human rights, and freedom in the world, which has been under pressure.
The cause of democracy. The cause of democracy has been the excuse making for American imperialism.
See, this is what I mean. He knows he has no argument.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that is the problem. We all, we're defending our freedom by going to Vietnam, really? By going to Iraq?
I look at Syrian children.
Okay, he understands. So he says, this is fascinating. He says, okay, I understand, yes, spreading democracy to Iraq was folly. Trying to protect the Vietnamese from communism was folly, right? Trying to promote democracy in the Middle East or in South Asia, that's folly.
Briahna,
but this
what
time,
do these people have in common?
Right.
They're not white.
This time,
Do I
it's
have
for
to
real.
say it?
This time, the stakes are high in Ukraine. Now it's for real. Now that logic makes sense. This is Western chauvinism at best, and yes, racism at worst. Those who have followed our show for a while know that we do not traffic in identity politics very often, but in this case, it is inescapable. It's inescapable.
Only as a kink at parties.
Yeah, right. Well, she pretty much checkmates him here.
In this case, it's
Yemenis and
In this case, it's true. He just says it. In this case, it's true. In the case of Iraq, no, we shouldn't have gone there. We shouldn't have intervened. In the case of Vietnam, no, we shouldn't have intervened. When white European democracy is on the line, yes, in this case, it's true. Now we have to go. But she makes this point better than either of us two schmucks can.
Vietnam, really? By going to Iraq?
I look at Syrian children and Yemenis and Haitians and Pakistanis, and I see humanity and a just struggle in each of those faces. And I got to tell you, it does bother me, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but when we saw all of the footage in the beginning of the war where reporter after reporter couldn't keep themselves from gushing over how blue-eyed and just like us these people look, that part of this does have to do with the fact that it's a European country, and people feel like those lives matter more, and they're able to justify the war on that basis. Now, I don't think that's why we're there. I think we're there because we don't care about people at all, but because of our strategic global dominance that we're trying to maintain at the end of this flailing empire.
Right.
But again, I'm not making an argument that there isn't a case to go to Ukraine. I'm just saying nobody's made the relativistic case that I think is necessary to justify intervening here and not in a million other meritorious places.
Okay, and at another point in the interview, and this is what really bothered him, because this erupted into a feud because she tweeted it out, and he got attacked quite a bit online, and he told everyone not to go on her show. He is to the left of the party establishment. He claims, and I have no cause to doubt it, I think she would have made that part of her post-spat argument if he was lying about it. He had been against NATO expansion. He had actually been a voice saying that this could provoke Russia if we expand NATO. So he sees himself as the good guy. To be out-lefted is very deeply hurtful for somebody like that, right? He's not only the establishment Democrats hate being out-lefted, much less the good guy. He sees himself as the voice of reason.
Right.
I was the guy saying not to expand NATO, but now we have to do it. And he gives up the game right when he says we haven't had the borders of Europe forcefully changed this way since World War II. I think Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, actually defies that contention. But what? Okay, so it's about it being Europe then, right? I mean, he says it straight out. we
Of
can't
course.
have this in Europe.
Right.
He doesn't
There's
say
no
those
other
words, but that's what that means, isn't it? We can't allow somebody to forcefully change a border in Europe.
Of course. Absolutely. So let's take a look, because Briahna went on her Hill show the following day after a tweet sort of erupted after she got all this heat. And let's take a look at some of the feedback she got from the good, decent, humanity-loving, anti-racist woke libs.
This mild pushback against the war machine. Democrats have accused me of being an isolationist and a subhuman fascist.
Oh,
They've accused me
they
of
called a black
promoting
woman
genocide
subhuman.
and wanting inaction on Ukraine. Former Ukraine ambassador to Austria called me a reptile for, again, simply asking what the end game was to a conflict we should all hope will end. Another former Ukrainian ambassador described me as embodying the banality of evil. And one user posted this image. Well, I'll leave you to interpret what exactly that's all about. All this for defending a letter that stated the obvious. The goal here should be peace.
All right. And the letter she's talking about is the Congressional Progressive Caucus's letter to Joe Biden asking for a strategic shift towards diplomacy in Ukraine, which their staff, quote unquote, published, and then they retracted. That's what she's talking about there.
That pesky staff.
Yeah.
If they didn't have a staff to blame it on, they'd have to invent one.
There was another tweet calling Briahna a vile bitch. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff.
Well, and that just shows you this double standard, because if a black woman in good standing with the Democratic Party were called a vile bitch, that called a subhuman, oh my God, they'd be calling for resignations and cancellations, and people who are associated with those people would have to denounce them. Not a word when it's directed at someone they don't agree with ideologically, which demonstrates, and this is something we'll get into when we're talking about House races. One of the most interesting things to me about these House races is that I believe half the people that Republicans are running for the House are women or people of color.
Well, half of the most competitive races.
Half of the most competitive. And I've always said this about the Republicans. It's really, you're accusing them of racism and sexism as their foundational political motive. You're shooting at the wrong target. They would love to be the first to elect people in all of these categories. They would love to play the identity politics game just like Democrats do. They love nothing more than to get a black person who has their politics, or to get a Latino person who has their politics. They don't turn those people away. They love having those people, just like the Democrats do. It gives cover for what they're really doing. They love to put those faces out front. It's really not about that. So when the Democrats start screaming bloody murder about sexism or racism, they don't care about those things. And they demonstrate it whenever these kinds of words are directed at someone who's not in the club.
Please clap.